Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajajananjana Yasodanandana Brajajananjana Yamuna Manachari Yamuna Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajajananjana Yasodanandana Brajajananjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajajananjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai Mathura Dhama Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Sarasvati Deve. Gauravani. Pracharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskachadi Satarane. Vandeham. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam. Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Stam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha, Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhavyevacha Patitanan Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Joita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Joita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. So it's October 27th, 2025 from Krishna Balaram Temple in Vrindavan. And we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 4, The Confidential Reasons for the Lord's Appearance, Text 181. Tabeye dekire gopira nija dehe prita. Sehota Krishnera lagi janiyan nischita. Please chant. Any gentlemen chant? Edekira gopira nitya dehe prita. Sehota Krishnera lagi janiyan nischita. Tabeye dekiya gopira nija dehe prita. Sehota Krishnera lagi janiyan nischita. Tabeye dekiye gopira nija dehe prita. Sehota Krishnera lagi janiya nischita. Tabe, now, yea, whatever, dekiye, we see, gopira, of the gopis, nija dehe, for their own bodies, prita, affection, seho, that, ta, certainly, Krishnera lagi, for Lord Krishna, janhiya, no, nischita, for certain. Srila Prabhupada's translation. Now, whatever affection we see the gopis show for their own bodies, know it for certain to be only for the sake of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The selfless love of Godhead exhibited by the gopis cannot have any parallel. We should not, therefore, misunderstand the carefulness of the gopis in their personal decoration. The gopis dressed themselves as beautifully as possible just to make Krishna happy by seeing them. They had no ulterior desires. They dedicated their bodies and everything they possessed to the service of Sri Krishna, taking it for granted that their bodies were meant for his enjoyment. They dressed themselves with the understanding that Krishna would be happy by seeing and touching them. Tabeye dekiye gopira nija dehe prita, sehota krishnera lagi janiya nishtita. Now whatever affection we see the gopis show for their own bodies, know it for certain to be only for the sake of Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada is saying here that the way the gopis would dress and decorate themselves has no parallel. He brings this up a number of times in various classes. And I've thought about this a lot. Like, what is the normal motive for people to dress and decorate themselves? So I did a little research, and the global apparel market this year is worth $1.84 trillion. It accounts for 1.6% of the world's gross product. And the cosmetic market size, $335.95 billion in 2024. So the fashion industry and the cosmetics industry are a huge industry, millions and trillions, $1.84 trillion on fashion. Of course, we also have a Vaishnava fashion industry, yes? Everywhere you go in the Hare Krishna movement, there is a gift shop. Actually, my first contact with Krishna consciousness was when I would visit my sister who lived on the Lower East Side, actually 2 blocks from 26 2nd Avenue. So this would have been when I was 12. And there was a store called the Krishna Store, and the owner, Alan Coleman, had produced the Happening album of Prabhupada chanting. And I would go in that store and just listen to that recording. I never purchased anything there, but he had a lot of traditional Vrindavan posters of Krishna and also Indian clothing, right? People were buying Indian clothing. So I'm thinking of it, why do we normally take care of our bodies? Why do we dress and decorate our bodies? Everyone here, I hope, is dressed. So why do we do that? I wanted to look at why we normally do that in conditioned life for sense gratification, and then go a little deeply into this mood of the gopis, their mood of doing everything for Krishna, and then bring it back to sadhakas like myself. Maybe many of you are siddhas, but at least for those of us who are sadhakas, how can we bring some of this mood into the way we decide to dress? So there's many descriptions in the Bhagavatam of women dressing and women's decoration. There's some extensive descriptions of how women, a particular woman, is dressed. Can anyone think of what any of those are? Huh? Mother Yasoda. Oh, that's a nice one. But this is in my category of conditioned souls. You're jumping to my second category of transcendental souls. Any of the Maya Devi descriptions? I can think of 2. Films in the Bhagavatam. Film stars in the Bhagavatam. There's no verses in the Bhagavatam about film stars. Although Prabhupada does use the word cinema songs sometimes in the Bhagavatam. But what Bhagavatam descriptions are there of women dressed, specific women who are dressing beautifully, not to please Krishna? Pingala. Yes. Huh? Putana. Oh, I like that one. She's dressing very nicely to bewilder all the inhabitants of Vrindavan so she can kill Krishna. That's not, well, okay, that's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yes, okay, the prostitute and Maya Devi in Chaitanya Charitamrita, who are trying to attract Haridas. Urvasi, thank you. So Urvasi, Yes, that was one I was thinking of. Right? And he becomes completely bewildered. Who else? Yes? A Jamila, a little bit description of the prostitute, yes. Purvachiti, very, very, very detailed description of when Agnidra sees Purvachiti. And whenever we read that section, I always think, what is this doing in the Bhagavatam? Like, why is there this really detailed description of Purvachiti's bodily features and dressing? And then, of course, on another level is Mohini Murti, where it's again, the details of her dress is given, that she's trying to bewilder the demons. And again, the details are given when she tries to bewilder Lord Shiva, because he asks to be bewildered by her. And I'm going to be a little vulnerable here, as I was just talking with Devaki about her new Vanaprastha book that I hope I get a chance to read, and I've worked with Jai Deutemarj on his Vanaprastha book. So something that happens to most of us is our bodies age, yes? Sometimes people say to me, oh, Urmila, you haven't changed. And I said, then I must have been really ugly when I was 20. You know, so I just remember very clearly, I was about 53 and I was putting on my tilak and I thought, who is this old lady in my mirror? Where is the pretty young girl gone? She's disappeared somewhere. And it was bothering me. I thought, oh, I've lost that. And I thought, why? What is the point of that? What is the point of the youthful attractiveness? And then very strong impetus from Super Soul. The point is to make men lusty and women envious. And I went, whoa, thank God it's gone. Because at first I was looking in the mirror and saying, where is it gone? Where is it gone? And then when I understood what it was, I'm like, thank God it is gone. Because people may say, oh, this is not extraordinary what the gopis are doing. All women, they're trying to please their husband, their boyfriend by dressing nicely. How is this extraordinary? Prabhupada's saying there's no parallel. But it's not the fact. When women are dressing nicely, they're trying to control a man, not please him, actually. I mean, when I saw that, it was just like, it was so nauseating. Trying to manipulate others. I'm going to try to make men lusty so that I can control them. Or I'm going to try to make women envious so that I can control them. Or just to have a sense of Ishwaraham, Aham Bhogi, Siddhaham, I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am happy. And of course, men are not exempt from this. There's also a fashion industry for men, though I'm sure it's a tiny fraction of women's fashion. And so why do men dress nicely? Also to attract women and to make men envious. It's the same principle. Just see how successful I am in my Armani suit with my Rolex watch. No? It's the same kind of thing. Or maybe you're, whatever group you're in, whatever is the way of impressing your group, maybe it's having purple spiked hair or whatever that is. But it's to impress others and to have a sense of power. And it's quite effective, actually. It's actually quite effective, or people wouldn't be spending billions and trillions of dollars on this. So this is actually why conditioned souls dress and decorate their bodies, to get a sense of power, to feel like they are the controllers of the world, and to control and manipulate others. Although ostensibly, they may say they're dressing to please others. Prabhupada would say, dress for others, eat for yourself. But that means you dress for that particular occasion. But people are not really thinking of pleasing others. All right, now let's look at the gopis. And this particular attitude of the gopis, where they're considering that there's no difference between their pleasure and Krishna's pleasure, is very nicely described. And I'm not going to read all of the verses, but it's in Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjwala Nilamani. This is in chapter 14, and it's described in text 43 to 58, where he talks about 3 different attitudes of the women in Krishna's Leelas who have the Madhurya Bhav, their romantic or conjugal relationship with Krishna. So I'm just going to read translations, and I'm just going to read some of these verses. So this is from Srila Rupa Goswami. He says, this rati of wanting to please Krishna in a romantic mood is described as Sadarani in Kubja, Samanjasa in the queens of Dwarka, and Samarta in the women of Vraja. So let's look at this word, Samarta. What does arta mean? Prabhupada will often translate it as wealth, but there's a more general description. What's a more general definition of arta? Something valuable, something necessary. And anarta is something unnecessary. And when we say we want to get rid of our anartas are unnecessary things that we think are necessary. Something we think is valuable and it's actually harmful. Like a man I read about years ago who was eaten by his pet python. So he's thinking, this is my dear pet, and actually so our anartas are like that. We're thinking, oh, this very dear quality of mine. So this arta means something valuable. And sam means the same. Sam arta. That what's valuable to Krishna is valuable to me, and there's no distinction. Okay. These ratis may be compared to a jewel, that's Sadarani of Kubja, a chintamani, that's the Samanjasa of the queens of Dwarka, and a kastuba, that's the Samarta of the gopis, which are not attained easily, that's the jewel of the Sadarani of Kubja, attained rarely, that's the Samanjasa of the queens of Dwarka, and most rarely attained, that's the Samarta of the gopis. That rati attaining a special nature in which the desire for enjoyment becomes one with it is called Samarta rati. So generally people enter into a relationship so they can experience rasa. Understand? When people are thinking, who do I want to marry? Almost always they're thinking, how will I enjoy this relationship? People are going to have children. They usually think, how will I enjoy my children? You go to work for a company, you're thinking, how will I enjoy my job? Yes? So this desire for enjoyment becomes one, samarta, with the desire to please Krishna. See, normally we try to please others in order to get something for ourselves. If I please you, you'll please me. But this is my pleasure, Krishna's pleasure. You can't distinguish anymore. Going on with Srila Rupa Goswami, arising from lalana nista swarupa, or a slight connection with anything related to Krishna, some artarati is most condensed. You all know what condensed is? Like burfi is the most condensed form of milk. And even a trace of it makes one forget everything else. Srila Prabhupada says we should try to follow the residents of Vrindavan even to a minute degree. So even just a little trace of this samarta, everything else becomes sunyaitam jagat sarvam. Everything else becomes nothing going on. In this rati, which astonishes Lakshmi by its waves of pleasure, which are most astonishing, the desire for one's own pleasure does not manifest separately. For this reason, there is only the desire for Krishna's happiness in samarta rati. So one is identifying Krishna's pleasure is my pleasure. We sometimes get a little indication of this in this world. Sometimes, right? Some family, they never graduated from secondary school and they work 2 jobs so their child can get a, graduate degree, and their child's getting their master's degree, and the happiness of the child is their happiness. That happens. And sometimes it's like that. You have so much affection for someone that their happiness is your happiness. You throw a birthday party for someone, you work really hard, and they come and they're surprised, and their happiness is your happiness. So we get a little idea of this, and this concept is actually what drives all the giving in the world. So I always use this example. Big holidays like Christmas or Diwali are about giving gifts. Right? Where I stay in Govardhan, all the workers, they made sure they knocked on my door on Diwali to get a box of sweets. But if someone said, oh, buy all those sweets for yourself, it wouldn't generate the business. You understand? It wouldn't be a big business venture. Take all your Diwali gift money, your Christmas gift money, and buy things for yourself. Because we're actually happier by giving. We're actually happier by giving. We're designed to give. Jivera Swarpaya Nichara Krishna Dasa. We're designed to serve. And this concept reaches its pinnacle in the gopis, where their giving and their enjoying is absolutely equal. Going on, in Samanjasarati, that's for the queens, actions for one's own pleasure sometimes manifest. And the example that he gives, in the Bhagavatam, it says the queens couldn't always attract Krishna. They would try with their dressing and their smiling. And it's explained here in Ujjwala Nilamani that the times when it wouldn't attract Krishna was any time any of the queens thought about their own pleasure. And we can understand this in our human relationship. If somebody is nice to us, but it's very obvious that they're nice to us to get something from us, that's not attractive to us, correct? We can feel it. If you walk in Vrindavan, shopkeepers are going to say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's so obvious that they're asking you to spend your money in their shop. Right? I always think if we can figure that out, Krishna can figure it out. If I'm saying Hare Krishna with some other desire. Yes. If people are trying to use us for their own pleasure, whether it's in a super gross way or a super subtle way, it feels icky. And we're not attracted. It's also interesting that even these prema devotees of the queens of Dwarka on such a level sometimes have some desire like this. I also find that very interesting. Going on, Samartharati, when it becomes deep, becomes the stage of Mahabhava, which is sought by liberated souls and the best of devotees. Then Srila Rupa Goswami gives an example from the 10th canto. Among all persons on earth, those cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives, for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages, and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high-class Brahmana or even as Lord Brahma himself? So this principle of having this samartha love is nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada in the Topmost Yoga System, Chapter 3, Beyond the Laws of Nature. He says we have to purify the propensity of material sense gratification. That is Krishna consciousness. For Krishna consciousness, we have to be purified. What is that purification? We cannot enjoy anything directly, so we have to enjoy through Krishna. And when I first heard that, it really struck me. We enjoy through Krishna. So Prabhupada's going on. He says, for example, we take prasadam. That's nice prasadam. The food stuff that is prepared is not taken directly. We take it through Krishna. First of all, we offer to Krishna, and then we take it. There's this nice sloka later on in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya is talking about prasadam. And he talks about when the Lord touches the prasadam with his lips, his qualities permeate the food and changes the nature of the food. We've all experienced this, yes? You eat something. I remember when I first had a sandesh, and I was thinking, what is this? The devotees gave it to me when I was on my way to work, and I was meditating on it all day. And I had previously worked as a chef in a hotel, so I knew something about cooking. And I came back to the temple in the evening, and I said, what was in that white bowl? And they said, milk and sugar. I'm like, nah. They said, well, a little lemon juice. I said, I don't think that was it either. Right? I saw Kamagiri at the Govardhan Pandal night before last, and this is a story I tell that's about her, although I don't usually mention her name. So I was in Puerto Rico, or as they say, Puerto Rico. And we were, Kamagiri was making cookies, or for you Brits, biscuits, in the kitchen for a university program. And it was the most simple cookie recipe you could make. Just butter and sugar and flour and baking soda, maybe a little vanilla. That's all that was in those cookies or biscuits. And I know because I was cooking when she was making them. So that evening we went to the university and I gave the class 140 people, 120, 140 people, faculty and students. And then we were distributing the cookies. And I never got to eat one because people were asking me questions at the end. So by the time the questions were finished, the cookies were gone. But at least 20 people came up to me and said, what is the recipe? And I was thinking if I tell them, they'll be very confused. Yes? So what we are experiencing when we taste prasadam, especially if the cook is in the right consciousness, and we are in the right consciousness, is we're tasting God. The Bhagavatam says that all rasa is on the tongue of the Lord, all pleasures, all tastes. So when the Lord is touching that food, that very ordinary cookie, the ordinary roti, what is it, just atta and water, maybe a little salt, it becomes transformed. And then we are experiencing Krishna. Krishna is Akila Rasamrita Murti. He's all tastes. And when we experience through Krishna, we experience his tastes. And that's how Krishna wants us to enjoy. This is very nicely explained in the purport by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to the verse in the Chatra Sloki, that just as the material elements enter into everything but remain separate, so in the same way I have entered into everything and remain separate. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the Lord is separate for the non-devotees, but he enters into the hearts of the devotees to perform Lila. And that he said the Lord wants us to relish his beauty, his fragrance, his sound, his touch, his taste. Such a simple example. So I recently had some guests staying at my place so they could attend the pandal. And I want them to be happy, yes? Are you comfortable on the bed? The bathroom clean? Did you get enough water? I want them to enjoy being in my house. You understand? But if they say, oh, very nice chair, I'll take it with me. Nice mattress. People do this in hotels sometimes, you know. So the materialistic person is trying to take Krishna's energy and steal it. And the devotee is enjoying through Krishna. And Krishna is very pleased, just like we're all very pleased when people enjoy through us, when we facilitate people's enjoyment. We're pleased and they're pleased. So another nice explanation of this is given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami in the 10th canto, the end of the 14th chapter. This is the section where Krishna expands as the cowherd boys and the calves. And they were exactly the same. Well, no, they weren't exactly the same. What was different? What was different? Yes? The attraction. So this is astonishing. Any of you who have children, I would hope that you're more attracted to your own children than to other people's children. Generally, that's how it works. Yes? That's how it works. One of my god sisters walking here just told me how one of her sons had recently died at the age of 42. And I was saying, you know, one of my grandsons died a couple years ago. So I'm more grieving when my grandson dies than when my friend's son dies. Right? Makes sense. But these parents, they're more attracted to Krishna than to their own child. And this was very bewildering. And Maharaj Parikshit is like, why? So I really like Sukadeva Goswami's answer. And I'm going to read this from Krishna book. This is chapter 14 in Krishna book. Everyone is working hard day and night just to give pleasure to his own self under either the bodily or spiritual concept of life. We are attached to material possessions because they give pleasure to the senses or to the body. The attachment to the body, right? So you follow that? We're doing things to give pleasure to our senses. The attachment to the body is there only because the I, the spirit soul, is within the body. Sometimes you read about people who have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, and their body was in a car crash, and they leave their body and they're hovering, and they don't even know it's them. They'll say, I looked at this body and I thought, boy, he looks really in bad shape. Their attachment to their own body, they have no identification. So we want to please the body because I'm there. And Prabhupada goes on, similarly, when one is further advanced, he knows that the spirit soul is pleasing because it is part and parcel of Krishna. Just like the body is pleasing because it's connected with me, I am pleasing because I'm connected with Krishna. Prabhupada says, ultimately, it is Krishna who is pleasing and all attractive. He is the super soul of everything. So that's the philosophical, theological basis of Samartha love. Samartha love is not exploitive. It's not like a material dictator who says, just work for me and give up all your own desires. With Krishna, because we're part of Krishna, because he's the self of the self, the Param Atma, the only reason we find ourself pleasing is because we're part of Krishna. Therefore, theologically, philosophically, Samartha love would be the highest pleasure for the soul. All right, now let's take it down to people like me, who are not gopis on some Samartha level. How does this apply to me as a sadhaka? And any of you who are sadhakas, any of you who are siddhas, you can maybe use this in your preaching. So one reason we want to dress is to create auspiciousness or a festivity or good fortune or a peaceful mind. So in Bhagavatam 10:24-29, this is in relationship to the Govardhan Puja festival. Krishna says, after everyone has eaten to his satisfaction, you should all dress and decorate yourselves handsomely. Smear your bodies with sandalwood paste and then circumambulate the cows, the brahmanas, the sacrificial fires, and Govardhan Hill. In the BBT purport, it says, Lord Krishna wanted all the human beings and even the animals to eat nice Bhagavat prasadam, To enthuse his relatives with a festive mood, he requested them to dress beautifully with fine clothes and ornaments and to refresh their bodies with luxurious sandalwood paste. So when there's a festival, right, we dress up to create a festive mood. And in so many cultures, the idea is like when you visit a temple or a church or a mosque or a synagogue, some place of worship, you wear special clothes. For the Christians in America, at least, they have this concept of your Sunday best. In Bali, the traditional Hindus, they all have traditional temple clothes, both men and women. You only wear when you're going to the temple. And they're fancier, they're more festive. So you have this mood, I'm going to a special place. Yes? And we see this with Mother Rohini. This is from 10:5:17. The most fortunate Rohini, the mother of Baladev, was honored by Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda, and thus she also dressed gorgeously and decorated herself with a necklace, a garland, and other ornaments. She was busy wandering here and there to receive the women who were guests at the festival. So this is Krishna's appearance. So Rohini, generally because she was separated from her husband in Mathura, Rohini is a very interesting personality, by the way. Very, very interesting. She's there in Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. And she's the mother of God, but she's basically a single mother. She has to raise Balaram without her husband. A very, very interesting person, if you ever want to dive deeply into a personality in the Bhagavatam. But anyway, even though normally she wasn't dressing nicely, for the festival, she dressed nicely. And Kasyapa Muni tells his wife Diti, as general instructions for becoming a Vaishnava in 6/1850, he says, don't go out unless you're properly dressed and ornamented. So I was also trained like that by my family. You don't go out unless you're properly dressed and with jewelry. And actually, when I was being interviewed for Jai Deutsche Maharaj's Vanaprastha book, I told him how as soon as my husband and I entered into the Vanaprastha ashram, so I took off my bangles and all my jewelry, gave them to my daughters-in-law and other friends. But I kept 2 little earrings because I felt if I go out without any jewelry, then I'm naked, I'm not dressed, I can't do that. And it took 10 years of being a Vanaprastha before I'm like, why am I wearing these little bits of gold in my ear? Like, why am I doing this? But I was so trained like this. I was just seeing a devotee in Pune, and she comes from a South Indian background. And she said, I was trained by my father, you don't go out of the house unless you have paka clothing and turmeric on your face, has to be haldi on your face and haldi on your hands, or you cannot go out. And proper jewelry, otherwise you're not presentable. Yes? So what is one purpose for this? So if we turn to Bhagavatam 4:3-4, this is in regard to Daksha's sacrifice. While the sacrifice was being performed, many Brahmarshis, great sages, ancestral demigods, and other demigods, their wives, all very nicely decorated with ornaments, attended from different parts of the universe. And from Prabhupada's purport, he says, in any auspicious ceremony, such as a marriage ceremony, sacrificial ceremony, or puja ceremony, it is auspicious for married women to decorate themselves very nicely with ornaments, fine clothing, and cosmetics. These are auspicious signs. Now, when I joined ISKCON, we had no idea about any of this. If I showed you my wedding picture, it would be an embarrassment. I was so, anyway, Hare Krishna. We didn't even think of weddings as preaching programs, My fire yagya was on Nisinga Chaturdasi. And it was just, and people were getting initiated at the fire yagya. And so my relatives came and they couldn't understand what was going on. Like, why are there all these people here singing these songs? And why is this person getting a new name? And anyway. But I didn't even have any jewelry. Maybe I had some little gold dot in my ear or something. Hare Krishna. Many heavenly women assembled with their husbands. It is specifically mentioned in this verse that they approach with their husbands. For when a woman is decorated nicely, her husband becomes more cheerful. The nice decorations, ornaments, and dress of the wives of the demigods and sages, and the cheerfulness of the demigods and sages themselves were all auspicious signs for the ceremony. In Bhagavatam 7:11, 26 to 27, it says, a chaste woman must dress nicely and decorate herself with golden ornaments for the pleasure of her husband. No man wants to come home from work to a messy house and a slovenly dressed wife. Now you may think, well, only married women. So in Bhagavatam 4:21-4, this is about Prithu Maharaj. As the king entered the gate of the city, all the citizens received him with many auspicious articles, like lamps, flowers, and yogurt. The king was also received by many beautiful unmarried girls, whose bodies were bedecked with various ornaments, especially with earrings, which collided with one another. So they must have had at least 2 holes in their ears. Otherwise, your earring on this side is not going to collide with your earring on this side. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A welcome offered by unmarried girls who are internally and externally clean and are dressed in nice garments and ornaments is also auspicious. Kumari or unmarried girls untouched by the hand of any member of the opposite sex are auspicious members of society. So we might not be able to dress nicely in the Samartha mood of the gopis, but at least we can say, well, I'm doing some service by creating a festive atmosphere, making my husband happy, creating auspiciousness. Then also in general, Srila Prabhupada said in a conversation in March 31st, 1977 in Bombay, first dress, then address. Now that conversation is interesting. When I looked it up for this class, Prabhupada was saying, you can go preach in suits and ties as respectable gentlemen. Don't do anything where people will think that we're strange. He said, first dress, then address. And that this is the concept of dressing for others. No, I don't know if I should again be a little vulnerable here. So I've never been particularly interested in dressing nicely. Like that's just never been an interest of mine ever in my life. Well, maybe briefly when I was 13. But it's just like not been my thing. And so when I joined the movement, I was more like a hippie in a sari. And then I was doing gold leafing at the palace, wearing basically rags, and some big network, TV network comes and interviews me. And there I am on, national American television, looking like a slob. And you think I would have learned from that, but I didn't. And I was still mostly dressed like a slob most of the time, old faded saris and whatever, I didn't care. And evidently I didn't take these verses very seriously. So this was then in the Detroit temple. I was there for the morning program. And Mukhya, she said, oh, Urmila, we need someone to do a radio show. Can you go right now? I'm like, sure. And it wasn't a radio show. It was a television show. And I'm like, oh my God. After that, I said, okay, Krishna, I'm going to every day dress so that I end up on television, that I'm not an embarrassment to the Hare Krishna movement. So this concept of first dress, then address, that we should look like ladies and gentlemen. We should be clean. Right? When Prabhupada was a Vanaprastha and he was staying at one of the Gaudiya Math temples in Delhi, he only had 2 dhotis and they had holes in them. And so Prabhupada petitioned the head of the temple, can I get 2 new dhotis? And they said, no, we're not going to spend the money on 2 dhotis for you. They said, all you're doing is disturbing the brahmacharis by telling them to preach. Why don't you go on a parikrama in Vrindavan? But Prabhupada had this concept, I can't go out and preach if my dhotis have holes in them. And I'm thinking about why. Why? It's the same principle as when you get introduced before a class. Before a class, if you're going to give a class to people who don't know you, we introduce the speaker, right? And I've thought, why do we do that? And why does the speaker tolerate it? Like, why do you sit here tolerating people glorifying you? And I realized it's to establish credibility. If people don't know you, why should they listen to you? But if they hear, oh, you have this accomplishment and you've done this thing and you've studied this, and then they will listen. So clothes are also like that. If you look like, the certain way of dressing in every society that indicates that you're probably educated or you're intelligent, you have some sophistication, correct? Yes? So to communicate that. And Mahaprabhu was particular, like he didn't want devotees wearing deerskin garments, for example. There's some particularity about how we dress. But now there's something exactly the opposite. Instead of dressing nicely and fancy and with ornaments and to create auspiciousness, one can also dress in the opposite way, as another kind of first dress than a dress. We are also a movement of material detachment. And there is also a dress of detachment, which creates a different kind of auspiciousness, isn't it? Yes? So when women are renounced or they're widowed, they should dress austerely as a way of communicating, I'm not looking for a husband. I'm not trying to control men through lust or women through envy. I'm separate from them. And the men dress as renunciates also to say, I'm not interested in women and money. I'm not interested in being a worldly enjoyer. And that's also an important kind of communication. I'm not going to exploit you. I don't need anything from you. I don't want anything from you. I don't want anything from the world. Of course, people take up the dress of renunciates to be exploiters. Yes? Even Ravana took up the dress of a renunciate to kidnap Sita. And people take up the dress of a holy person to be exploiters. But this is the concept. So in Bhagavatam 4:28-44, with description of the dress to a Vanaprastha woman, the daughter of King Vidarbha wore old garments, and she was lean and thin because of her vows of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in knots. Of course, we Vanaprastha women who are preachers, I don't think we should wear dreadlocks and torn clothing. But this concept of simplicity, of not concern with hair and dress and cosmetics and ornaments. And in 7:12:21, description that the Vanaprastha should wear matted locks of hair on his head, let his hair, nails, and mustache grow. He should keep a water pot, deerskin, and rod, bear the bark of a tree as a covering, and use garments colored like fire. So the only one of these we follow is the garments colored like fire. The purpose of the saffron color is it symbolizes the yajnik fire. That you are yourself a walking yajnik fire, fully dedicated to the Lord in sacrifice, which reminds yourself that I am dedicating myself to the Lord in fire, and is a symbol to others, again, that I am not an exploiter. I have renounced the world. So even when we're looking at whether, according to our ashram, whether we're to dress nicely to create auspiciousness or whether we're to dress simply to create auspiciousness, we should be aiming toward this samartha. We should be aiming, I'm doing this not to control others, not to try to be an enjoyer in the world, but to try to please Krishna. That when Krishna, Balaram, Gauranitai, Radhasham, Srila Prabhupada, when they look at us, dress for others and have that other be Krishna. That Krishna will say, yes, very nice. I'm very pleased with how you're representing yourself as my servant in the world. that we're the salespersons in the Krishna Prem company, you know, and how we're representing ourselves. That we can do this even as sadhakas. I mean, here we're focused on dress and ornaments, but this is true for everything with we take care of our bodies. Yes? Bathing, shaving, taking care of the hair, putting on tilak. Everything should be, will Krishna be pleased? And to meditate like that. It's so easy to go through life unconscious, isn't it? It's so easy. It's easy to put on tilak unconsciously. Om Narayana, Om Madhavayana, Govindaya Namo. But we can meditate. You know, I like to meditate on the different names. Right? Om Madhavayana Namaha, that also means springtime. How the Lord is the enjoyer of spring, Govindaya with the cows. And we can think like that. Krishna, I'm dressing and decorating this body. I'm putting on kunti, tulsi bees, I'm putting on tilak for your pleasure. I'm doing this for you. So thank you very much. Should I take questions or just end? Yeah? Anything good in this class is from Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas and the Shastra. Any mistakes in this class are mine. Please take the good and either correct or ignore the mistakes. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for thoughtful lecture class. I really appreciate the Samartha, the mood of the gopis, and when you brought that how to switch the consciousness while resting, like bringing the consciousness of the server and over there. So in the same book of the Urmila of Goswami, he mentioned about the Swapaksha type of the gopis and Vipaksha type of gopis. So this Samartha type of the mood of the gopi, is it similar kind of the Swapaksha or is this Vipaksha?
All the gopis are like this.
Means the gopis of the breath, Samartha type, they have the same...
All the gopis of Vraj have this Samartha type.
So instead of like the Swapaksha and Vipaksha, Tapasya, Surendra, so all the four categories will be Samartha type.
Correct.
Oh, thank you very much.
I see you read Ujjwala Nilamani. Yes, we have another question in the back.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your strict thinking and very strongly you have spoken this subject matter very clearly for our understanding. Regarding dress, yes, it is true. People judge other people by seeing their dress. So his case, Anupam Prabhu, he also said that when you are going to study the management course, he said that when you go to preaching, your dress should be proper. Prabhupada says, dress and then address.
Yes, first dress, then address. Yes.
So, Gopi, they are just ready. They decorate themselves for Krishna's pleasure. We also decorate ourselves for Krishna's pleasure, for attracting people to come to Krishna consciousness. So here mentioned that Gopis, they dress for Krishna's pleasure. So kindly could you tell me how women can become more beautiful by dress? They are also well dressed, but there's something missing. So how they can become more beautiful? You are looking beautiful. Because mentioned that 20 years back I saw myself in mirror. This person totally changed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Every
Every
moment
moment
will body.
Yeah.
Our beauty also going change.
It will leave.
But
But
still,
still you are looking very beautiful. Because dress is very nice. By dress we can show our beauty, real beauty.
Well, we show our real beauty in our relationship with Krishna.
So my question, Mataji, could you explain how women can become more beautiful?
Oh boy, some people are not going to like this one. Prabhupada said a woman becomes more beautiful the more children she has.
What she does?
The more children.
Children.
This will not be favorable to many people in the audience. I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger.
Srila Prabhupada says that.
Also, I heard Ravindra Sri Prabhu talk about this. It's a nice description that Krishna Das Kaviraj gives, that when Krishna and the gopis look at each other, the beauty of each of them increases. And Ravindra Sri Prabhu was saying, when you love somebody, you appear beautiful. And he said, just like at a wedding, right? Even if the bride is not actually beautiful, she appears at least more beautiful, relatively speaking. Oh, I'm going to tell you something else. And this is a paid political announcement. So I worked with this one devotee, Rukmini Devi Dasi, that's not Anuttama's wife. Her legal name is Dr. Ruchira Datta. And we wrote this book, Career Dharma, basically how to understand and implement the Varna part of Varnashram. And so one of the things that we do is we help people understand what is their nature. I was just reading this morning in chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, how important it is to act according to your nature. So we train people to be coaches, to help people understand their nature. And what we look for is the person becoming beautiful. When we're doing a coaching session, if the person just says, yes, I'm really inspired by doing business, that's something I really enjoy doing. So that doesn't mean anything to us. As soon as they start talking about their dharma, their actual dharma, their whole physiology changes. They become lighter, both in terms of brightness and weight. They look younger, they look more beautiful, and it's striking. And that's just thinking about being in their right place in terms of Varna Dharma. And I was telling this phenomena to my co-author, Dr. Ruchira Datta, and I said, just contemplating doing your swadharma makes you beautiful and light. What to speak of actually doing it? And she said, so much of the darkness in Kali Yuga is that people are doing the wrong dharma. And the essence of dharma is service. Service is outward facing. People think your dharma is, what do I like to do? What makes me happy? But your dharma is, how do I want to serve? In what way do I want to contribute to the world for the glory of Krishna? And when we find that place, we become more beautiful. So the more that we're doing our natural place, and ultimately our natural place in Lila as soul, the more we realize on a transcendent level where I belong in the Lila as a soul. And the more we realize what is my service for the Lord in this world, we become beautiful. And I've seen in this coaching work, which is, please bless us that this can be the beginning of Prabhupada's desire to establish a Varnashram college in every center. And I've seen people who are materially not attractive. When you're first talking to them, you're thinking, oh, this poor person, how do they go through life being so funny looking? And when they realize, even just theoretically, understanding what is my nature, how can I use my nature in service, they all of a sudden become beautiful. It's a very dramatic, yes, those of you here who've been to our coaching course, yes, you can confirm. It's very dramatic. And it's actually almost addictive for those of us who help people like that. That we help them to become beautiful and luminous. So if everyone in this world were engaged in sadhana bhakti and working in the world according to their nature for the glory of Krishna, the whole world would become beautiful and full of peace and prosperity. So that is the actual way for us to become beautiful, Because we are, as a soul, we are actually beautiful. And the more we connect with that, then the more that beauty radiates. So again, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Really appreciate it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Nice to see you.